Hello and welcome to Code Your English, the channel that helps you improve your English step by step. I'm so happy to have you here today because we are going to talk about something really important for learning English: inputs and outputs. These two things are the key to speaking and understanding English better, and in this episode, I'll show you exactly how they work and why they are so powerful. Now, you might be wondering, what are inputs and outputs? And why do they matter for my English learning? Well, don't worry, I'll explain everything in a simple and easy way. Whether you're just starting your English learning journey or you've been learning for a while, this episode will help you understand how to train your brain to think in English naturally. Before we dive in, I want you to take a moment and think about how you learned your first language as a child. Did you study grammar rules first? Did you memorize long lists of words? No. You simply listened and absorbed what people around you were saying. You heard your parents talk. You watched people interact. And little by little, you started to understand. Then, one day, you spoke your first words. That's the power of input. It fills your brain with the language. And when you finally start speaking, that's output, using what you have learned. Now, imagine if you could apply this same method to English. Imagine if learning English could be as natural and smooth as learning your first language. Well, the good news is you can. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how. Many English learners feel stuck. They watch videos, they read books, they listen to English speakers, but when it's time to speak, they feel nervous or don't know what to say. If this sounds like you, then you're in the right place. This episode is designed to help you break free from that struggle by understanding how to balance input and output in a way that actually improves your fluency. This is not just about learning more English, it's about using English in real life. Because at the end of the day, we don't just learn English to pass a test. We learn it to communicate, to express ourselves, and to connect with others. And I want to help you do that with confidence. So, what can you expect in today's episode? Well, here's what we'll cover. What is input? Why listening and reading are the foundation of language learning? What is output? How speaking and writing help you become fluent? How to balance input and output so you don't just understand English, but actually use it? Common mistakes that slow down your progress, and how to avoid them. Practical tips you can start using today to improve your English faster. Sounds interesting? I promise, by the end of this episode, you will have a clear strategy for learning English in a way that actually works. So, stay with me until the end, because you don't want to miss these powerful techniques. If you're serious about improving your English, this episode is going to be a game changer for you. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Code Your English, so you never miss an episode. All right, let's get started and dive into the world of English inputs and outputs. Before diving into what are English inputs, let's walk through Cambridge Dictionary definition of input. Definition of input, based on Cambridge Dictionary. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, the word input refers to something such as energy, money, or information that is put into a system, organization, or machine so that it can operate. In language learning, input means the English that you receive and absorb, mainly through listening and reading. It is the information that enters your brain and helps you understand the language before you can use it in speaking or writing. Example of input in language learning. Imagine a child learning their first language. Before they start speaking, they spend months just listening to their parents, watching their expressions, and hearing words repeatedly. Over time, their brain collects enough input, and one day, they start saying words like mama or dog. The same thing happens when learning English as a second language. If you listen to English podcasts, watch movies, and read books, your brain stores new words, phrases, and grammar structures. Later, when you start speaking, you naturally use what you have learned. Example: Sarah wants to improve her English. Every day, she listens to an English podcast for 20 minutes and reads a short news article. At first, she doesn't understand everything, but over time, her brain absorbs new words and phrases. After a few months, she notices that she can understand conversations more easily, and even use some of the phrases she heard in her own speaking. Input is the first step to fluency. The more English you listen to and read, the easier it becomes to think, speak, and write naturally. So, keep exposing yourself to English every day. What are English inputs? Now that we understand why input and output are essential for learning English, let's focus on the first part: input. This is where everything begins. Without input, there can be no output. But what exactly is input, and why is it so important? Definition of inputs: listening and reading. In simple words, input is any English you take in. It includes everything you hear and read in English. Whenever you listen to an English conversation, watch a movie, or read a book, your brain is collecting words, phrases, and sentence structures. This process is essential because before you can speak or write English, output, you first need to understand it. Input. Think about how babies learn their first language. They don't start speaking immediately. First, they listen to their parents, watch their surroundings, and slowly understand the meaning of words. Then, after months or even years of listening, they finally begin to speak. This same process applies to learning English as a second language. You need input before output. So, the more English you listen to and read, the more familiar your brain becomes with the language. Over time, this will help you speak and write better, even if you don't memorize grammar rules or vocabulary lists. Why input is the foundation of language learning? Imagine trying to build a house without bricks. Sounds impossible, right? The same goes for learning English. Input is like the bricks. It gives you the materials you need to form sentences, express thoughts, and communicate naturally. Many English learners struggle because they don't get enough input. They focus too much on grammar exercises and memorizing words without actually hearing or seeing those words used in real conversations. This can make English feel unnatural or difficult to recall when speaking. The more input you get, the more automatic English becomes. Instead of thinking about grammar rules while speaking, you will naturally form correct sentences, just like how native speakers do. This is why input is the foundation of fluency. The more you expose yourself to English, the more your brain absorbs it, making speaking and writing much easier. Types of input. Not all input is the same. There are two main types of input: passive input and active input. Both are useful, but understanding the difference will help you use them effectively. 1. Passive input. Background listening, watching without focusing. Passive input happens when you listen or read English without fully paying attention. This can include playing an English podcast while cooking or driving, watching a movie with subtitles but not focusing on the words, having English music in the background. This type of input is useful because it keeps your brain exposed to English sounds and rhythm, even if you don't understand everything. Over time, your ears get used to the natural flow of English, making it easier to recognize words and phrases. However, passive input alone is not enough. While it helps you become familiar with English, it won't make you fluent unless you also practice active input. 2. Active input. Listening attentively, reading with focus. Active input happens when you fully concentrate on what you're listening to or reading. This means listening carefully to an English podcast and trying to understand every word, watching an English video without subtitles, and paying attention to how sentences are formed, reading an English book and looking up new words to understand their meaning. Active input is powerful because it forces your brain to process English deeply. When you actively listen or read, you notice patterns, new words, and how sentences are structured. This makes it easier to remember and use what you learn in real conversations. To improve your English quickly, you should combine both passive and active input. Passive input helps you get used to English naturally, while active input helps you understand and remember new things better. Long, practical examples of how input improves language skills. To understand the impact of input, let's look at 2 real-life examples. Example 1. Learning through listening. Imagine you listen to an English podcast every day while commuting to work. At first, you only understand a few words. But after a few weeks, your ears start recognizing more words and phrases. You begin to understand full sentences without translating them in your head. After a few months, you notice that you can answer simple questions in English more confidently. All because your brain absorbed enough input to form responses naturally. Example 2. Learning through reading. Now, let's say you decide to read an English short story every night before bed. At first, you need to check the dictionary often, but as you continue, you recognize more words and understand sentences faster. After a few months, you find that you can write better in English because you've seen how words and grammar are used in real sentences. Your writing improves naturally because your brain has collected enough input from reading. These examples show how consistent exposure to input, whether through listening or reading, gradually improves speaking and writing skills. How much input is necessary for progress? A common question is, how much input do I need to improve? The answer depends on how often and how well you expose yourself to English. But let's look at some estimates. If you listen to 30 minutes of English every day, you'll see improvement in about 3 to 6 months. If you read for 15 minutes daily, your vocabulary and sentence structure will improve in a few months. If you combine 1 hour of listening and 30 minutes of reading daily, you can reach a conversational level in about a year. These numbers aren't strict rules, but they show one thing clearly. The more input you get, the faster you improve. If you want to become fluent, aim for at least 1 hour of English input every day. Input is the fuel for your English learning journey. Without it, you won't have the materials needed to speak and write confidently. Whether through listening or reading, the more English you expose yourself to, the more natural it will feel. To make real progress, combine passive and active input, and try to get at least 1 hour of English exposure every day. In the next section, we'll talk about English output, how to use what you've learned to improve your speaking and writing. Stay tuned. Now let's learn about English outputs. Definition of output, based on Cambridge Dictionary. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, the word output means the amount of something that is produced by a person, machine, or system. In language learning, output refers to the English that you produce, mainly through speaking and writing. It is how you express your thoughts and ideas after receiving input. Without output, you might understand English but struggle to communicate effectively. Example of output in language learning. Imagine a musician who listens to a lot of songs but never plays an instrument. They might recognize music but won't be able to create their own. Similarly, in English, if you only listen and read but never practice speaking or writing, you will understand the language but won't be able to use it fluently. Example: John has been watching English movies for months. He understands many words but feels nervous when speaking. To improve, he starts practicing speaking out loud every day and writing a short journal in English. At first, he makes mistakes, but with time, he becomes more confident and fluent in expressing his ideas. Output is necessary for fluency. The more you speak and write, the more comfortable you become with using English in real situations. So, don't be afraid to practice every day. Mistakes are part of the learning process. What are English outputs? Now that we have discussed English input, it's time to talk about the second half of the language learning process. Output. While input is about absorbing English through listening and reading, output is about using English through speaking and writing. Many learners focus too much on input and avoid output because they feel nervous or afraid of making mistakes. But without output, you cannot become fluent in English. Speaking and writing help you turn passive knowledge into active skills. In this section, we will define output, explain why it is necessary, explore different types of output, and see how using English regularly helps with retention and fluency. Definition of outputs, speaking and writing. Output means producing English rather than just understanding it. There are two main types of output. Speaking, using your voice to communicate in English. This includes conversations, answering questions, giving speeches, or even thinking out loud in English. Writing, expressing thoughts through text. This includes writing essays, emails, social media posts, or even keeping a personal journal in English. Think of output as a workout for your brain. Just as athletes train their muscles to get stronger, you need to practice speaking and writing to strengthen your ability to use English naturally. Without output, you may understand English well, but you might struggle to express yourself when needed. That's why practicing output regularly is essential. Why output is necessary for fluency. Imagine you are learning how to swim. You watch videos, read books about swimming techniques, and observe professional swimmers. However, if you never actually get into the water, can you truly learn how to swim? No, you have to practice. The same rule applies to English. Fluency doesn't come from just listening and reading. It comes from using the language. Here's why output is essential. It helps you remember more. When you speak or write, you force your brain to recall vocabulary and grammar rules. This strengthens your memory and helps you remember words more easily. It builds confidence. The more you use English, the more comfortable you become. Over time, you will feel less nervous when speaking in real situations. It highlights your weaknesses. When you speak or write, you realize which words or grammar rules you struggle with. This helps you focus on improving those areas. It trains you to think in English. Speaking and writing regularly help your brain process ideas in English, reducing the need to translate from your native language. Many learners avoid speaking because they feel shy or afraid of making mistakes. But mistakes are part of the learning process. The more you practice, the better you will become. Types of output. Just like input, output comes in different forms. There are two main types: planned output and spontaneous output. 1. Planned output. Writing essays, preparing presentations. Planned output happens when you prepare before using English. This includes writing an essay for an exam, preparing a presentation for work or school, drafting an email to a colleague or friend. Planned output is great for organizing your thoughts and improving your writing skills. Since you have time to think, you can focus on using correct grammar, new vocabulary, and clear sentence structures. One effective way to practice planned output is keeping a daily journal in English. Writing a few sentences every day about your thoughts, experiences, or plans can help you improve your ability to express yourself clearly. 2. Spontaneous output. Speaking without preparation. Casual conversations. Spontaneous output happens when you use English in the moment without preparation. This includes talking to a friend in English, answering a question in class without thinking too much, speaking English while shopping or traveling. This type of output is essential for fluency because, in real life, you don't always have time to plan your words. Spontaneous speaking forces you to think quickly in English, which helps you respond naturally. At first, speaking without preparation can feel difficult. You might forget words or make mistakes. But that's okay. The more you practice, the easier it gets. A great way to improve spontaneous speaking is by talking to yourself in English. Try describing what you are doing or thinking out loud. For example, if you are cooking, you can say, "Now I am cutting the vegetables. I need to boil the water." This helps you practice forming sentences naturally. The balance between input and output. Some learners focus too much on input, listening and reading, but avoid output, speaking and writing. Others try to speak and write a lot, but don't get enough input. To improve quickly, you need a balance between both. Here's a simple guideline to follow. 70% input, 30% output. Spend most of your time listening and reading, but also practice speaking and writing regularly. Practice output every day. Even if it's just for a few minutes, try to speak or write something in English daily. Use what you learn. If you learn a new word or phrase from a book, try using it in a conversation or writing it in a sentence. Think of language learning as a cycle. Input, listening and reading. You absorb new words, phrases, and grammar. Output, speaking and writing. You use what you have learned, which helps you remember it better. The more you repeat this cycle, the faster you will improve. Long, detailed examples of how output helps retention. To see how output improves language skills, let's look at two examples. Example 1. Speaking practice. Maria is learning English. She listens to podcasts every day but never practices speaking. One day, she tries to have a conversation in English but struggles to find words. She realizes that just listening isn't enough. She needs to practice speaking. So Maria starts speaking English for 10 minutes every day. She talks to herself, records her voice, and practices conversations with friends. After a few months, she feels more confident and fluent, and speaking becomes easier. Example 2. Writing practice. John wants to improve his English writing. At first, he struggles to form sentences and his grammar is weak, but he decides to write one short paragraph every day about his life. He also asks a teacher to correct his mistakes. After 3 months, John notices that his writing is clearer and more natural. He remembers grammar rules more easily because he has used them many times in writing. These examples show that using English actively is the key to improving. The more you practice, the better your brain becomes at forming sentences naturally. Output is a crucial part of language learning. Without speaking and writing, you can't become fluent. The best way to improve is to start small and practice consistently. Here's a simple challenge for you. Speak for 5 minutes in English every day. Talk to yourself or record your voice. Write 3 to 5 sentences in English daily. Keep a journal or write about your day. If you do this, you will see huge improvements in your fluency over time. In the next section, we'll discuss how to combine input and output effectively to maximize your progress. Stay tuned, the best way to balance input and output. Now that we've discussed English input and output, the next question is, how do we balance them effectively? Some learners spend too much time listening and reading, but rarely speak or write. Others try to speak a lot, but don't get enough listening and reading practice. The key to mastering English is finding the right balance between both. In this section, we will explore how to create a daily routine. Give example schedules for different types of learners. Discuss how to mix input and output effectively, and understand why consistency is important for fluency. How to make a daily routine for input and output. A good English learning routine includes both input and output every day. The key is to use English in different ways, even if you have only a little time. Here's how you can structure your daily practice. Start with input. Begin your day by listening to an English podcast or reading a short article. This helps you absorb new vocabulary and sentence structures. Move to output. After listening or reading, try to speak about what you learned or write a short summary. This helps you activate what you learned. Mix short and long sessions. You don't need to spend hours studying. Even short 5 to 10 minute sessions of speaking and writing can be effective if you do them consistently. Make it fun. Choose interesting topics. If you love sports, listen to sports podcasts in English. If you enjoy cooking, read English recipes and try to describe them in English. Be consistent. Learning English is like exercising. If you practice a little every day, you will see steady improvement. Let's now look at example schedules for different learners based on their daily lives. Example: schedules for different learners. Everyone has a different lifestyle, so let's see how students, workers, and busy people can balance input and output in their daily routines. 1. English learning routine for students. Students usually have more time to study English, so they can include more focused learning in their routine. Morning input. Listen to an English podcast for 15 minutes while getting ready for school. Afternoon output. After classes, write a short paragraph about what you learned today. Evening input and output. Watch a TV show in English for 30 minutes and repeat some sentences aloud to practice pronunciation. Extra tip: join an English conversation club or find a language partner to practice speaking regularly. Second English learning routine for workers. Workers have busy schedules, but they can still practice English by using their free time wisely. Morning input. Listen to an audiobook or podcast on the way to work, 20 minutes. Lunch break, output. Write a short message or email in English to practice writing. Evening, input and output. Watch an English video for 20 minutes and summarize it aloud in your own words. Extra tip. If you work in an English-speaking environment, try to speak in English with colleagues when possible. Third English learning routine for busy people. Even if you have a very tight schedule, you can still practice English in small ways. Morning input. Read an English quote or news headline for 5 minutes. During the day, input and output. Think in English while doing daily activities, e.g., now I am making coffee. Evening, output. Record a 1-minute voice message in English about your day. Extra tip. Use English learning apps while waiting in line or during short breaks. How to improve fluency with a mix of both. To speak fluently, you need both input and output working together. Here's how to improve fluency with a good mix. Shadowing. Listen to a sentence and repeat it immediately. This improves pronunciation and fluency. Speaking after reading. After reading an article, explain it in your own words. This helps train your brain to form sentences quickly. Writing and speaking together. Write a short story, then read it out loud. This helps reinforce sentence structure and speaking confidence. Use the 1-to-1 rule. For every 10 minutes of listening and reading, try to speak or write for at least 10 minutes. This ensures you are not just absorbing, but also producing English. The importance of consistency. Consistency is the secret to fluency. Even 15 to 30 minutes per day is better than studying for 3 hours once a week. Why? Because language learning is like building a habit. When you practice every day, your brain retains the information better. Let's compare two learners. Anna practices English for 15 minutes every day. She listens to short podcasts, writes simple sentences, and speaks a little each day. John studies English once a week for 3 hours, but doesn't practice in between. After 3 months, Anna has improved her fluency because she uses English daily, while John struggles because he forgets what he learned between study sessions. The key lesson? Small, daily practice is more powerful than irregular, long study sessions. A perfect English learning routine includes listening and reading, input. Absorb new words and sentence structures. Speaking and writing, output. Use what you learn to make it active. Daily practice. Even a few minutes each day can lead to big improvements. Fun and interesting topics. Choose materials you enjoy to stay motivated. Challenge for you. Try creating a daily schedule that includes both input and output. Start with just 10 minutes of speaking or writing every day and slowly increase the time. By balancing input and output, you will become a more confident and fluent English speaker. Keep practicing, and you will see progress faster than you expect. Common mistakes and how to avoid them. Learning English is a journey, and like any journey, there are obstacles along the way. Many learners make common mistakes that slow down their progress without realizing it. Some people focus too much on input and not enough on output. Others do the opposite. Some rely too much on passive learning, while others are afraid to make mistakes when speaking or writing. In this section, we will discuss these common mistakes in detail and provide practical strategies to help you avoid them. Mistake number 1: too much input, too little output, and vice versa. Many learners only focus on input They listen to English podcasts, watch TV shows, and read books, but they never practice speaking or writing. This is a big problem because understanding English is not the same as using it. If you never produce English, you will struggle to communicate when it's time to speak or write. On the other hand, some learners focus too much on output. They try to speak all the time, but don't spend enough time listening or reading. This can cause poor sentence structures and limited vocabulary because they don't learn enough from native speakers. How to fix it? Follow the 1-to-1 rule. For every 10 minutes of listening or reading, try to speak or write for at least 10 minutes. Summarize what you learn. After listening to a podcast, talk about it in your own words. After reading an article, write a short summary. Use English in daily life. If you hear a new phrase, try using it in a conversation or writing it in a sentence. By balancing both input and output, you will develop all language skills effectively. Mistake number 2. Over-reliance on passive input. Passive input means listening or watching English without paying full attention. Many learners play English videos in the background while doing other tasks. While this can be helpful, it is not enough to improve fluency because the brain is not actively processing the language. Passive input is like watching someone cook without actually cooking yourself. You might understand the process, but you won't be able to do it well when you try. How to fix it? Turn passive input into active learning. Instead of just watching a video, repeat words and phrases aloud. Try the shadowing technique. Repeat after the speaker. Take notes. Write down useful expressions from podcasts or TV shows and use them later. Engage with the content. If you watch a YouTube video, leave a comment in English. If you read an article, write a short opinion about it. When you actively listen and read, your brain absorbs more and you improve faster. Mistake number 3. Fear of making mistakes in output. Many learners are afraid to speak or write because they don't want to make mistakes. This fear stops them from practicing, which slows down their progress. The truth is, mistakes are a natural part of learning. Even native speakers make mistakes. Imagine a child learning to walk. They fall many times, but they don't stop trying. That's how we all learn, through trial and error. How to fix it? Accept that mistakes are normal. Instead of being afraid of mistakes, see them as learning opportunities. Every mistake helps you improve. Practice with a supportive partner. Find a language partner or tutor who encourages you to speak without fear. Record yourself speaking. Listen to your own voice and notice areas where you can improve. Over time, this will build confidence. Write daily, even if it's simple. Start with short sentences. Over time, your writing will improve. The more you practice, the more confident you will become. Don't let fear stop you from using English. Final thoughts on avoiding these mistakes. The best way to improve English is to balance input and output. Stay actively engaged and embrace mistakes as part of learning. Listen, read, speak, and write every day. Don't just absorb English, use it. Mistakes are proof that you're learning. By avoiding these common mistakes and applying these strategies, you will become a more confident and fluent English speaker. Keep practicing, and success will follow. We have covered a lot in this podcast, and I hope you now have a clear understanding of how English inputs and outputs work together to help you learn the language effectively. Before we end, let's take a moment to review the key points, encourage you to take action, and provide you with useful resources to continue your journey. Summary of key points. English inputs, listening and reading. The foundation of language learning. The more you listen and read, the more natural English will feel to you. Remember to balance passive and active input for the best results. English outputs, speaking and writing, the key to fluency. Practicing speaking and writing regularly will help you build confidence and improve your ability to express your thoughts clearly. The balance between input and output. Both are necessary for success. Too much input without output will make you understand but struggle to communicate, while too much output without input will limit your vocabulary and accuracy. Common mistakes and how to avoid them. Many learners focus too much on one skill, rely on passive learning, or fear making mistakes. The best way to improve is to take action, stay engaged, and embrace mistakes as part of the process. Now, the most important thing is to start applying what you've learned today. Knowledge is powerful, but only if you use it. If you keep listening to podcasts, watching videos, and reading books without practicing speaking or writing, your progress will be slow. But if you make a simple plan and start practicing a little bit every day, you will see huge improvements over time. Remember, it's okay to make mistakes. Every mistake is a step toward fluency. Stay consistent. Even 10 to 15 minutes of practice each day is better than nothing. Enjoy the process. Learning English should be fun. Watch things you love. Talk about topics that interest you. And challenge yourself in a positive way. Resources for further learning. If you want to keep improving, here are some great resources to help you. Podcasts and YouTube channels. Listen to English learning podcasts, like this one, and follow channels that focus on simple, clear English. Books and articles. Read simple books, news websites, or blogs in English. Try graded readers if you are a beginner. Flashcard apps. Use apps like Anki or Quizlet to remember new words easily. Daily writing and speaking practice. Keep a journal in English or record yourself speaking for a few minutes every day. Choose the resources that work best for you and use them consistently. Before we end, I want to invite you to take the next step in your learning journey. If you found this podcast helpful, make sure to subscribe to our channel, Code Your English, so you never miss new episodes. Like this episode and share it with other English learners who might benefit from it. Leave a comment and tell us, what was your biggest takeaway from this episode? What is one action you will take today to improve your English? Challenge yourself. Right now, make a simple plan. How will you practice both input and output this week? Write it down and start today. You have everything you need to take your English to the next level. Remember, fluency is not about being perfect. It's about communicating and improving step by step. Keep going, keep practicing, and most importantly, believe in yourself. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.